Hi, I'm Daryl Urbanski, and welcome to the Best Business Podcast. My mission is to help create 200 new multi-millionaire business owners. How? You'll do better when you know better. In my interviews, you'll hear from self-made millionaires, seven-figure business owners, authors, and world-class experts sharing how they did it so you can too without experiencing the same obstacles they did. Now, if you like this interview, please share it with a friend you think will benefit. They'll appreciate it, and I will as well. You can also connect with me on social media. Look for Daryl Urbanski, D-A-R-Y-L, Urban Ski, U-R-B-A-N-S-K-I, and add me so we can be friends. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy what I've prepared for you right here, right now. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host as always, and today we are joined by Sonya Karras and Sacha Kaluri, two of Australia's most wanted motivational speakers. Speaking to more than 200 school groups, parents, corporate companies, government agencies, and not-for-profit orgs each year, they are the directors of the Australian Teenage Expo, Australia's largest youth educational event. These two are also co-creators and presenters across multiple media channels, including the Sonya and Sacha Show on national TV and radio, their social comments and columns with the Herald Sun newspaper. Plus, for 2 years running, they are the official Australian ambassadors for the United Nations New York Women's Entrepreneurship Day. Finally, if that wasn't enough, they are releasing a new parenting book about young people titled The Two Worlds of Your Teenager. And on top of all that, they've somehow figured out how to have a successful business partnership for going on 17 years now. Wow. So obviously, I've asked them here to join us today so we can learn more about building our own platforms as well as making long-lasting business partnerships work. So Sonya, Sacha, thank you two for joining me today. How are you ladies doing?
Thanks, Daryl. So happy to be here.
Yeah, fun to be here too. So for the listeners, why don't you just, so they know who's who, I know who's who, but just so they can identify with their voices, why don't you say, who's Sonya, who's Sacha?
Okay, so I'm Sonya. I'm Sonya over here with the red hair. You can't tell, but I have red hair, so it's me. If you look at the picture on our website, I'm the redhead, yeah?
There we go.
And I'm Sacha. I'm not the beautiful one. Sonia's the beautiful one. I'm the chubby one.
Oh, stop.
No,
No.
she's the gorgeous, gorgeous blonde. We're excited to talk to you, Daryl. This is good energy already. What's going on?
So, well, I mean, that's kind of what I wanted to get into you two with. You've obviously, over 17 years, you girls, you ladies, you women have done a lot of things and accomplished a lot, even just to still be in the game this long. A lot of people, they don't even have the mental fortitude to keep a hobby for 2 weeks or 2 years, let alone keep their New Year's resolution for the first 30 days, let alone keep something going for 17 years. So how did you two get started? Like, what were you doing before you came into doing this?
That was a long time ago. So I started my own business when I was just 18 years old. By the time that Sonya and I met, I'd been doing it for such a long time and I'd had successes and failures and was a point in my career where I was looking for something different. And I began speaking in schools. And then within probably not less than a year, one of our mutual friends actually introduced us to each other and said, well, you should speak to Sonya because she's actually speaking in schools as well. So we had completely different topics. And then instantly we began to start to market ourselves together. And it was kind of organic how I know that sounds a bit cliche, but it really was because before we knew it, people started to know who we were. They knew that we weren't in competition to each other. So it just kind of flowed for us to start a business together and be together.
Got it.
And my background was in the hospitality industry, Daryl, so I worked in nightclubs for a long time. I was running them and I was on the door as one of those scary door chicks and I got lots of experience in doing that. And then that's how it led to my speaking business where I go into schools and universities and companies and organizations and talk about, drugs and alcohol and celebrating safely. So very different backgrounds, very different topics, but the same style, I would say, of presentation, lots of energy, lots of humor, message across without being preachy. And it was a really lovely fit. When we first met, our mutual friend said, you do the same thing. This is really weird. And your jobs are weird. So you should definitely meet. And I think we chatted.
Your jobs are weird.
Yeah, well, it is. It's like, it's kind of unusual to have a, speaking, job where you're in the school, in the same sort of system, in the same sector. And I think that first telephone conversation lasted about 4 hours. It was kind of like it was almost like a first date kind of thing. It was really weird. We had all these synchronicities in our lives, and it was just a strange and really cool thing, which has seen us through for the last nearly 2 decades. Like, we need to celebrate hardcore when we get to 20 years.
I was going to say, what was the unifying theme? Because it sounded like you each had something a little bit different going on, and you guys, I gotta stop that. You ladies, you girls were speaking publicly together, so that was a match. But did you have the same mission? Did you have the same end goal? What was the big click, or was it just that other people didn't understand you, and you two were kind of entrepreneurs, and you obviously really felt understood because you each understood what it was like to try and get speaking gigs and to be in, like, the trials and tribulations that maybe your partners and your other friends and family couldn't really understand?
Yeah, it was all of that. It was all of that as well. It's so great even now, it's such a long time later, to get on the phone with each other and say, I just had this amazing gig. This happened at this school, or, I just, this experience happened to me, or this person approached me after my seminar. And really, the only other person in my world who knows how that feels is Sacha. And so to have that is awesome. And I think we probably just clicked on so many levels because we love working with young people. We see their value. We see how exciting and interesting and amazing they are. And we say that we've got this magnet in us that just draws us to want to work with young people. And I think we both found out that about each other really early on and sort of came together and bang, it all happened.
So what are some of the greatest challenges you two have faced in your career, and how have you overcome it?
Oh, well, that's an hour by itself right there.
One of the first things that we decided to embark on was, other than our speaking gigs, was we had decided that we thought, how do we make this bigger? How do we get out to more people? And looking back on our lives now, we realised that we had much more in common than just the fact that we were wanting to speak to teenagers. Just had personality traits that were so much in common as well. And then by absolute coincidence, we both got pregnant at the same time. Different husbands, trust me on that one, but we both got pregnant at the same time. Completely. We gave birth 2 months apart.
What?
Yeah, we gave birth. So, then, believe it or not, we both got pregnant again at the same time, where we both miscarried within 2 weeks of each other. Then, to top this all off, we both get pregnant again together, and we have our second children are 2 weeks exactly apart. Is that just not weird?
That's sort of, that's a lot of synchronicity.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it makes sense because I know that women do get in sync when they spend a lot of time together, but I don't think you time your pregnancy and Labor Days that way either. I know some other things get in sync, but it's a little
weird.
I mean, already as a man, there's some weird things going on when women get together, but
that's another level.
Yeah, I know it's
yeah. Even we can't, I think the third pregnancy, Sonya said, I'm pregnant. And then 2 weeks later, I just said, you're not going to believe it, but so am I. And I was like, no way. No, you can't do this 3 times.
It's like, you're like, soul sisters. You're like, oh my God.
Our husbands are not calling each other at night going, what are you doing tonight? Are you doing it tonight? Because I'm doing it tonight. Are you doing it? I promise that is not happening at all.
Right. That is so crazy. That's pretty wild.
Yeah. So
we walked out of this thing. Yeah. Sash, were you going to say about the pregnancy? Oh, yeah. Go for it.
When we had our first children, we went along because we had no idea, because we know teenagers, but we didn't know baby. And just after we had given birth was an event near us that was called the Pregnancy and Babies Expo. And it was an event that was all about giving every piece of information that you would ever need about having a baby. Literally what books to read and what pram to get, what nappy to use, everything that you would need on having a baby. And so we went along to this event with tiny, tiny little children and came out with bags of information. And it was so valuable for us because we had no idea. And literally as we were walking out, we both kind of went, amazing that, you're able to access all of this information in one place. There's nothing like that for teenagers, because the next time of parenting, the next stage of parenting is all of a sudden, once a parent starts to get it on board that they've got this child, all of a sudden they become a teenager and it's a whole nother ball game. So it's that another time in a parent's life or a teenager's life where they have to go back to the drawing board and then have to gather all of that information. So with tiny little babies, we actually decided that we would create that event, and it became the Australian Teenage Expo. And I think it's like 55,000 young people so far have attended.
That's amazing. 55,000 young people. That's a lot of lives to have an impact on. That's a lot of lives to have touched. Some people, they'll come through and they'll go and, it'll just be another day in their life and they won't think anything of it. But for some people, it'll be the most meaningful event of their year. And that's phenomenal. So that is something we're celebrating right then and there. And again, all the entrepreneurs that are listening, I think it's important that we do stop and take some, because that's impressive. Like, who can I say that? Who can say that they've touched 55,000 kids' lives? That's pretty phenomenal.
Well, that's actually just in our event. Like, we've probably spoken to more than a million teenagers in our career. Like, that's literally just for the Australian Teenage Expo. And we've been able to create, so the point of the expo is to put everything that a young person, educator or parent would need. So anything from employment details or universities or alternative programs for education, because normal school is not necessarily the right thing for every young person, right?
Right.
So that was about putting that information in there. Then it was also putting any services that a young person would need, from drug and alcohol, eating disorders, mental health, sexual health, all of that stuff in one place. And then finally, all the products that a young person needs, wants, and has to have. And we knew that in order to be able to get a young person to want to come along and be a part of it, it needed to be fun and it needed to be interactive. It literally just could not be a person handing out brochures and saying, here, here's some information on, drug and alcohol issues. They're not going to go, oh, that's great. Yeah, I have a drug and alcohol issue problem. Like, please pass on that details to us. We knew that it needed to be fun and catchy so that the young person would walk away and have that information and then on their own time be able to access it, value and be able to even know that these services exist out there.
Right. Now, that all didn't come together at the beginning, was it? Like the first time you popped off with this event, did you have all that together, all those pieces?
We used to say that there was no one working on the expo between the hours of 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. So we worked so many hours on putting this thing together, and it was just this, we had to get it done because we committed ourselves to this huge venue and there were lots of different segments of it. We had to liaise with all the schools to get the young people to come along. We had to then liaise with all of the exhibitors and try and sell the space for them to come along and actually do something cool enough that young people would be interested in interacting with them. We had to organise there's so many different elements. We could go on for ages about the tiny little intricate things that we all had to be all over. And of course, as your listeners would know, entrepreneurs still have to have a life. I mean, we work the crazy hours. We all do because we're all passionate about what we do. But we also had life things happening. We had tiny children, and throughout the course of the expo, you were asking before what are the difficulties that we faced. We've had real stuff like losses of parents, and as Sacha said before, miscarriages, and working on our other businesses, and other children came along, and it was we've got all of that stuff going on. But I think if you have this common thing that you would like to get done, and you can see that it is going to be powerful and it will be beneficial and it will be fun as well, then that's one of our mottos with our business, Darryl, was that everything we take on, every project that we do must be fun. There must be an element of fun, otherwise we're out. We can't do it.
That's so important, because if you've mentally checked out, it's just going to be an uphill battle. I think that's a good key for anyone listening to this. If you feel you've mentally checked out in any way, shape, or form in what you're currently doing, or you've lost the love and passion for it, you need to get somebody in to either take over that role, or you need to take a break so you can come back to it fresh, or you just need to keep at it. And because one of my favorite quotes about mastery is do it until it becomes dull, and then keep doing it until it's beautiful. And that's about how you master something, is you just do it because you love it and it gets dull. And that's when you learn, right? There's another thing to be said about that too. Like, nobody really learns when everything's easy, because it's easy. There's no friction. Friction and challenge and turmoil is where you learn, where you grow, where you have those experiences, where you're pushed when you're uncomfortable. Those are the things that really push you outside of your box.
Yes.
So, it sounds like you ladies were pushed and pulled outside of your own boxes a lot. Would you recommend anyone that's struggling, if they have any sort of partnership or any sort of event-based business that they're in, they're either butting heads, or they're having frustrations, or they're just struggling and they're just starting out?
Well, if you've got anybody who's struggling in a partnership, the number one thing that we always say is to completely take away the ego, because it's actually the ego that destroys the partnership. So if you know that at some point, if there's any kind of ego that you're thinking, I'm not sharing this, or, you're in competition with that other person, if you strip away the ego and you actually go to them and are completely vulnerable and say, this is exactly how I'm feeling, and almost ask them, please strip away your ego. Let's have this conversation, because the ego will definitely make it fail.
So just having a big ego by not... Can you expand on that? By having a big ego?
So, for example, if at any point, Sonya and I ever made a mistake, like we have lots of times, we talk about lots of different things that Sonya and I either of us have made a mistake. Now, one person could go away and say, oh, that person's made a mistake. I'm the one that's working really hard, or this is what's going on, and I can't believe this is all on my plate. And, how could that person have made such a stupid mistake? It's actually costing us a lot of money. And then you get caught up in the blame game. And none of that is actually healthy for the relationship. So we actually always say, first and foremost, we are friends first. So no amount of money could ever, or no business venture could ever take that away. So it's constantly about having understanding and empathy about what the other person is experiencing. So, for example, at different times in our lives, I may be working harder, or Sonya may be working harder. But to know, for the good of the whole, we're always working as hard as possible. But right now, my life is chaotic and I can't put in the same amount of hours as what she is, or vice versa. So rather than actually saying, listen, Sonya, I just feel like I'm doing all the work, take away the ego and have some sort of understanding about what's going on, and then having the conversation, always being open.
I think that's really important. I'm really glad you brought that up. The sense of being able to step back and take a breather and try to see it from a bigger picture.
I think sometimes we can get caught up in this tiny little details of things, and we're tired because we've worked long hours, and we just get caught up in that sort of, that, well, I am doing this and I am working harder and da. And it's just, you've got to really, like you said, Dale, step back, go back to, why did we start this? Why were we doing this together? Let's have a look at the bigger picture here. Right now, we are tired because of this thing's going on. But like Sacha said, when she's working on something and I'm out, I can't do it at the time, I will always pick it up on the other end. Yeah. So she'll be working it on that day. I'll be working on it on that day. She'll go off on holidays and I'll be, in the office getting the tax stuff done, but we will make sure that there's the share of the work that it is done. Not necessarily that we're both in the office on the computer from 8 until 7. It's just we respect each other enough to know that there needs to be a balance of work done and action taken, and we do it. But we don't give each other a hard time about, well, I'm here and now, and where are you, and that kind of thing. It's just, we try and take away all of that silly ego stuff and just say, I love you as a person, I love you as a business partner, as my partner, I'm in this and this is what's going on in my life, but I'm going to pick it up the next day or the following day.
Do you know what we do, Daryl, that I think is a really special thing? So there are things that some of us have strengths in and some of us have weaknesses in. And one of my weaknesses is that I hate doing anything regarding tax. I hate it. I actually remember one of the things that we do is we often do little surprises for each other. So I know that some people out there in the world would go out and buy each other gifts and, oh, look what I've organised for you. But I think probably the greatest gift that I ever received was I went on a holiday to America. I was in LA for 2 weeks and I came home and Sonya said, I've got your present. And I said, what's that? And she said, I've done our tax.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my God, I'm like doing Disneyland 14-hour days and she's doing 14-hour days doing our tax. That's what you call.
Wow.
So it's kind of like any kind of relationship. You need to keep it fresh. You need to surprise each other. You need to care about each other. I mean, it's just, there's lots of similarities between a relationship and a business partnership.
Right.
If you want to sustain it for such a long time, you're in this together, you keep it fresh. You've got to work on it. You've got to, surprise each other, have to respect each other, give each other little things that will make them happy. Keep that good vibe going on as much as you can.
So well said.
I'd much rather our tax done than a Gucci handbag, trust me, right? I would much rather that. I would much rather that as a present, saying, here, I've done the tax, Yep. But the other thing, Daryl, is that you always need to come back and say, what is the intention behind everything? Like, the intention is everything. So if we know that our intention is always to do the right thing, make sure that we're striving really hard, come up with ideas, go to the next level, whatever it might be, if you know what the underlying intention is, it means that when there are any mistakes, they're just a mistake. So it doesn't mean that at any point someone might be snappy. Like, both of us have worked crazy hours and all of a sudden, there are times sometimes that there's so much on our plate that when you're ringing each other up or you're having these conversations, it's very sharp and quick. Like, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you get this done? Like, that to-do list of things that you need to get done. And then you might actually hang up thinking that, I was probably a little bit sharp in how, I was a little bit not so friendly, like, could you please do this? I've just gone, well, have you done that? And then to check yourself in and say, look, sorry, I didn't actually mean it to be so sharp the way I actually responded in that. But the intention is that we're here to do the right thing. We're here to get this job done. And, I stuffed up and I'm a human being and I made a mistake and I probably shouldn't have been so harsh in my response in that comment. But that my intention is never to hurt you and to never take it for granted.
It comes down to really good communication skills.
Absolutely.
And a willingness to admit your faults and your mistakes. You two make it sound a lot like a marriage.
Yeah, see, that's the stupid way the ego part, Darryl. We look at a lot of businesses. We're often asked to speak to businesses and the partnerships are they're surviving on sending short, sharp emails to each other with no care and no, human streak about it. It's just, well, I felt like this when you did, and it's actually it's really destructive for the partnership. If you can't sit in front of each other and say, hey, what's going down? What is happening now? Because there's a weird bite going on. Something's happening. We need to sort this out. Not sending off messages and emails to each other and trying to get it done that way. It needs to come back to we're both human. We're all human. We have days where things are great, days where things are not. Clearly something's going wrong now. Let's sit down and get it out, work out what's going on here and come back to where we started.
Know the intention. Like I know that under no circumstances would Sonya ever want to hurt me or make me feel what I was doing was less worthy than what she was trying to do, or she was more important in the relationship or in the business partnership or in the speaking or whatever it was. She never wanted to make me feel like that. So if she, for example, at any time one of us did make each other feel like that, you would know that it was a mess. It was a stuff up. It wasn't an intentional thing because we're human and we're not perfect.
So beyond the partnership between you two, do you feel that there's any habits that you've had business-wise that have, like you mentioned, doing your taxes? That's an important thing for a business. Are there any habits that you feel have helped you in terms of making the business successful and making it last so long?
We just go. We just never, ever give up. We just keep on going and going and going. The funding that we applied for to have this youth event that we run around Australia, we sought from the federal government of Australia. So we're like, okay, where do we start with this? We've never done presentations and proposals for government before. We had no idea what we were doing. So we went back to what we do know and we got a bit cheeky. So we started calling the Prime Minister's office, which is like, calling the president, right? Yep. Or, Prime Minister, the head of the country. We would have called that office, right? And we made friends with the receptionist, hi Elaine, how you going today? What's going on? How's it in Canberra? A bit cold today, isn't it? Yeah, hey, how you go? We wish you had a coffee today, Elaine. And we would just chat and be cheeky and be funny and throw some humour in there, which was how we roll. That's our style in everything that we do. We throw a bit of that stuff in and it breaks down those kinds of, conservative, stiff barriers. So we always try and at the end of it, we got our meeting with the Prime Minister's office and, we got our funding from the federal government. We had 5 years of funding from them. And basically it was from a 3-page proposal that we put together that we had no idea what we were doing, but we were persistent. We were not taking no for an answer with this thing. And cheeky and a bit humorous as well. We're constantly throwing out emails into the world that have just our style of humour in it. And we're constantly getting back these messages from people saying, it is a very unique email. I don't think I've ever read something like that in my life. That makes me laugh. I'm so happy. And that cuts through because they're always getting the same stuff, hi, how are you? How's your day? Hope you're well.
Right.
Here I am, this thing. We've even thrown jokes in. We got McDonald's to work for us and become a sponsor because I told a stupid joke in my email.
Right. Yeah. Well, you put your personality out there, which lets people connect with you.
Yeah.
A lot of times I think people put on like their professional lens and they get into corporate speak and they start writing like they're writing for their English teacher. And that's not how real people communicate.
Yeah, boring.
Yeah.
The one way that we survive this is that we have to find something to laugh at. And we always say that there is nothing off limits on what we can laugh at. Nothing. Like even on the most dire straits of our lives, we will find something to laugh at all the time. That is I would say, wouldn't you say, Sonya, that's our number one thing on how we survive is laughing.
Well, you know what? If people recorded our daily conversations, and we usually call each other in the school drop-off another 700 times after that, if they recorded our telephone conversations, just the stuff that we talk about and the stuff that we laugh at, probably they might admit us as an inpatient to a mental hospital. But Other than that, they would say, oh yeah, that's a really funny, weird way of looking at it. Why? I'd never thought of it like that. So there's humor in everything, Daryl. We can't keep this so serious all the time, I mean, this is a hustle. Your entrepreneurial listeners will be saying, this is hard work. I'm busting my butt. Yeah, it is hard work. So let's have a laugh along the way, right?
Because we're working like 10, 15-hour days every day, all the time. Like we're putting it, we're taking our kids to school, picking them up, on the phone. The minute where they're asleep, I'm putting my kids to sleep and I'm trying to contact somebody through social media to get something new or try something. So like it's a crazy thing. And we both understand that the number one thing, our kids come first all the time, all the time. I know that on the social media platform, it must look like we do work 24 hours a day, and sometimes we actually do, but our kids always come first. So we make sure that our life runs around our children. And so that sometimes means that you do need to put in those extra hours of work once they go to sleep.
Right.
Well, we've also been able to make that. We ran an event which had 10,000 kids come through the door, and I literally had a 2-week-old baby and Sacha had a 4-week-old baby. So we built a breastfeeding room into the event.
Right.
When the builders came in to build the stands and the booths, we had a breastfeeding room in the actual event. Yeah.
Right. Which is so cool.
Right.
Secret. Like
so
nobody
people had to. And people had to kind of put their hand over their eyes as they walked in and asked us questions, because we were like, it was like a freak show in there, baby freak show, milk stuff going everywhere.
That's my personal opinion. I don't really get that. I've traveled a lot, and there's a lot of countries where, they just carry a little blanket, and wherever they are, that's where the baby feeds. I don't get what the big deal is. That's a whole separate topic.
Not a big deal, but we had a little room.
But there's some people that are like, get some privacy. Like, what do you mean? Grow up.
Yeah, exactly. True. And then there's other times where we've been at play centres, kids' play centres, and the kids are playing on the equipment inside, and we're plugged in our laptops and we're working and we're coming up with, ideas, and we're doing proposals and that kind of thing. You make it work. I always say it's balls in the air. You just juggle. You just juggle it and you work it.
So what are a lot of the mistakes that you see other people making, either entrepreneurs or even the kids when they're trying to get up and running and take charge of their lives?
I think the mistakes that people are making is that they're not understanding how much hard work it's going to be when you go into this, and how much you need to hustle, how much you need to think about on the scope. For example, when we've got an idea and we say we're going to contact a few people to get their ideas on or see if anyone's going to pick up this idea, some people go, I'll contact maybe 3 or 4 people and see how we go. Well, we know that we need to contact about 1,000.
Right.
1,000, and then you'll maybe get like 1 or 2% back that'll come back and say, yeah, that's really cool. Like there's no possible way that you go 1 or 2. And when I hear people say, oh, look, I'll give 5 or 6 people a call, I just want to laugh and go, are you serious? Like 5 or 6 people, they're not even going to, like, if it does, you are the luckiest person on earth, right? But let me tell you, that has never happened for us. We've been doing this 17 years and we're still hustling people. We're still calling people. We're still coming up with new ideas. On social media, it looks like, our life is grand, and, we must be getting calls from people every day. I'll come and do this with them. Yeah, they're calling us because we've called them 1,000 times before.
Yeah, I can actually attest to that for all the listeners here. Nora, my podcast girl that helps set up these interviews, had an accident where she fell, hit her head, was in a coma for 3 days, and then in the hospital for a week and a half.
Oh.
And during that time, Sacha was trying to connect with me to get something set up, and I think you had 1 or 2 times that you set in a calendar that I didn't show up for, and already, like even now, we're doing the interview early my morning, late at night for you, because we're on opposites of the planet. Like, I can definitely attest to that. Even today, to be honest, for this interview, we started recording at 8 a.m. today. I get up at my usual, like, 5:30, 6 a.m., and I check my calendar, and no one had reminded me yesterday that the interview was today. And I was a little upset with my team about that, because I'm like, I can't set a reminder for myself if I don't set the date of the interview, because usually we don't even start work till 9. But, it was fine. I'm on top of it. I had a couple hours if I needed to do any prep. But I can attest to that you definitely, 17 years down the road, you're still on your hustle. I think that that's a really important thing to point out, because it's not even just about the goal. Like, a lot of people start a business with a goal. Like, I want to make $1 million, or I want to have this sort of like lifestyle and freedom and stuff. And a lot of it is about the process. It's not even about the end result. I mean, Jim Rohn, one of my favorite mentor. I've never met him, but I call him a mentor. He says, the valuable thing about setting goals is not just achieving the goal, but it's who you have to become on the way to accomplishing it. And so I think that that's really valuable. I think that's a really valuable thing. Like for you, like if we took away everything you two had built already so far, you'd be back up and running in no time because you've got the habits, the routines, like you've done it. You've got the drives, like you said, you got the hustle. You'll be on the phone like, hey, it's me again. Hey, it's me again. Hey, what's that? And not in a bad way either at all, because I think it's done very tactfully. So,
well, we've got this thing that happened to us when we were in Hong Kong together. We went on a trip together for Sasha's mum's 60th birthday, and we were wanting to go to this place, and we got into this taxi and we said to the driver, could you please take us over there? And he said, no. Just a straight no. And we were like, are you sure about no? Okay, right. So definitely no. So we called out the Hong Kong taxi driver no. And we've had lots and lots of Hong Kong taxi driver no's in our time of trying to put proposals out there and ideas and that sort of thing. But often those Hong Kong taxi driver no's will actually mean not yet.
Right.
And you keep going and they will become a client. And so you keep being your funny, cruisy, cool self, and eventually they will wake up to the fact that they need you in their lives, and so they will come back and say, on the 15th phone call, actually, yes, I might need that now. We've had some Hong Kong no's, we've had some nasty no's, we've had some sweet no's, and we just treat them all the same.
Yep.
Okay, cool, that's no worries, we'll get back to you, we'll chat again soon. And those clients have, those people have turned into clients later on.
Yeah, I think that's the being disconnected part is important, because people, they take action when they're ready, not when you are.
Yeah.
So if you're afraid of them not being ready, I mean, you have to hide in your closet all day. But if you're okay to put yourself out there and have them not be ready and come back to you, again, it's just the tact part is really important. I'm not concerned at all about you two, but just for some of the listeners, and especially someone that's new and starting out, some of those no's might be because you're not coming from their point of view or their perspective. You're not showing empathy and understanding for their situation or their position or what their goal is in terms of the person you're trying to get a yes from. So just anyone listening, just keep that in mind. And we're not telling you to, we are saying be like green eggs and ham, Dr. Seuss's Green Eggs and Ham, but make sure that it's in line and that you're a stern but loving parent. You're coming across in that sense. Again, if there's somebody in your family that you love and they're sick and they just won't take the medicine, and the medicine works, you're going to treat it a lot differently, right? You're not going to just be afraid of them complaining. You'll be like, look, just take it. And then they won't take it. All right, fine. But then when they start complaining, be like, look, don't complain to me, because you're not taking the medicine, right? So that's it's that candor, it's that I don't know, just people, like, so much of communication and language is not verbal. So even just that confidence, like that just speaks such volumes, and just the persistence, and just commit that this is who you are and this is what you do and this is what you're going to be doing, and that it's a musical thing. You're supposed to sing and dance when the music is playing. It's not a rush to get to the last note. Yeah. And I think that is a great way to think about it. And that comes from what you just said about that, how 17 years later you're still hustling, you're still in your grind. Entrepreneurs are doers. We feel really motivated when we feel like we've got progress and momentum in a direction. That's why we work so hard, is to get that going. And so it's very fulfilling for you in some respects.
And you know what? It's also about just having a go, Daryl. It's just about, just throwing it out there and seeing what happens. There's so many people that say, I think maybe I'll do this. And then they just do a little tiny bit of it, and then that didn't work. Okay, well, I'm giving up. We've had these opportunities to do the radio show, to do the TV show, to write this book, because we had a go. We put some stuff together and we threw it out there and saw what happened. And then if it didn't work, then we changed it and recrafted it and threw it back out there and saw what happened after that. And that's the reason why these things that we've done have come about. I mean, the book was something that we did, our book, The Two Worlds of Your Teenager. We picked that up and put it down for about 8 years. We wrote and then we put it down, and then we wrote and then we put it down. And then it was like, all right, you know what? I think now is the time. For some reason, we just went, let's do this. Got it done. We threw it out to 10 publishers and we forgot about it. Let it go. Elsa, Frozen, let it go. We had to let it go. Which we're both not very good at, but we did that. We let it go, we let that go. And all of a sudden the prime publisher of this kind of genre of books came back to us and said, yes, we're going to do this with you. And so, it's something that we picked up, put down, put out there, brought back in, for a long time. And now it must just be the right timing for when the world needs this book, and it's coming out. So
Can you tell me a bit about your book? So it's The Two Worlds of Your Teenager, or wait, I didn't get the title right.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, no, The Two Worlds of Your Teenager. Okay. So it's Two Worlds of Your Teenager, and what's the goal of the book? What's the premise? And can you talk about your book and the experience in producing it and writing it, and yeah, what it's for, what it's to be used for?
So it's both on the areas that we are experts on when we speak to teenagers. So the concept of the book is that all of a sudden a teenager will come into a world where in one part they'll start to make choices about their careers and subjects that they may choose or direction that they may go or options and look at different ideas about their career. But then also they will start to go out and party and come home late at night and drink alcohol or be around a whole nother world that you as a parent have no idea how to be able to answer these questions because, you know, you partied a whole long time ago and your career options were so much different to what a young person would have now. So we just went, okay, these are the areas that we're experts in. Let's put this book together so that parents can actually walk away with some great strategies on how they can, you know, give advice to their young people.
Got it. Because that's a stressful thing, wondering if you're parenting well or right. And oftentimes it might just be because you don't understand what your child is going through from a developmental stage, right? From there, we all forget it. I remember at my martial arts school, we call that black belt eyes, where you forget what it's like to walk into a gym your very first time because you've been doing it for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, right? You forget what it's like to come and look at that situation with fresh eyes and to have that feeling of, oh, I'm going to train with these guys. I hope they don't hurt me, or, you know, all that sort of stuff. I mean, remember how bewildered I would be. Sometimes I have students that would call me the day after their first class and be like, hey, I'm really sore. Should I go to the hospital? And be like, no, like that's just muscle ache. You're fine. You'll be okay. And like we're laughing about it, but it's a legitimate thing. And for them, like, you know, if anybody that was a student of mine heard that, they might feel bad. But the reality is we all thought that the very first time it happened, right? Unless somebody told us different. That's that whole black belt eyes thing. So I think a book like this is really powerful because we can forget what it's like to be a teenager. We can forget what it's like to be caught between the kid and the adult world, you know, and in between.
Well, it's different now. You know, our teenagers are all over social media. The pressures that they're, under now didn't exist for us. You know, we didn't grow up with this stuff. And they are, and that's a part of their world and that's how they communicate. And their career options are so different. You know, a lot of parents of teenagers at the moment would have been exposed to, right, I need to get a job and that's where I will finish my career at that same company. It was very common to sort of show that lifetime loyalty to an employer and work there forever. Just not what's happening with teenagers now. You know, they'll have, I don't think Sasha's got the stats, but they'll have, seven different
industries.
Something.
They'll work in 7 different industries in 29 different jobs. I mean, that's just what the statistics are now.
And how are you supposed to generate any traction to start gaining like a decent income in that, unless they're all transferable? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, how do you get that progression to earn a bigger income when you have so many? I mean, first of all, I don't know if that's a bad thing. In fact, teenagers that I have living with me right now, not my own, but family that I have living with me, I've told them all that they all need to do more in terms of work more, volunteer more, because they don't know what they do or don't like. And the only way they're going to figure that out is getting out there and doing it.
That's it.
Like those 29 jobs, I think that's an important part of it. I hope that stat just represents people trying to figure out what their passion is, something that they can do for 30, 40 years, not the fact that they'll constantly have to be starting over from scratch. Because that's almost a scary thought if you think about it, right? I think there's a lot of people, even myself, if I had to pick a whole new field or an interest to go into, like, Daryl, you're going to be in ballet from now on. Like, that's kind of intimidating. I'm like, really? Like, I'm going to be so awkward, and no, like, not like it's not something a guy can do, but just like, I'm really at the starting line for that, you know, and to be at this age and have to build a career in that's kind of scary.
Really actually just shows that in some way a lot of young people are actually starting out and they're all almost starting out as entrepreneurs themselves, because it's a really important thing for them to be able to look at themselves and their name and their image and their brand is really a brand. So just like Sonya and I, that we're out there and we're hustling the grind to be able to expose ourselves even more, they're almost doing the same thing, even if it's just getting a job or however they want, because, you know, the way that they're acting, whether it's at university or school, and, you know, people talk and what is their brand already? What are they doing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because that's what a brand to me, and in my experience, a brand is just a reputation. That's all it is. If you're doing brand marketing, that can be a hard road in the marketing world in terms of generating leads and sales. I really would prefer to think of it as coupon marketing.
Yeah.
It might be a better way to think of advertising. But the brand is what you build over time, and that's a relationship. We've got a brand with each other. We've got a relationship over time. You do business with a company over enough, people, they get a reputation, and that's what the brand is. So you're right. I think you're really right that for them, it is almost like they're brand new entrepreneurs, and they're just figuring things out, and they don't know their market. They don't even know their product really well, and they're not sure how they're being perceived. And and they'll learn, but it's all about feedback. It's all about moving forward and getting feedback. And yeah, I think that's a big, big part of it for kids. And that's, I think, the other thing is having them be exposed to a lot of different things, because then they'll meet you two, and one of you two might really resonate with your message, and they use you as a role model, where their parents could have been telling them the same thing for 10 years, but it's just, it's in one ear out the other because of who it's coming from.
Yeah, it's the delivery.
Right.
All at the same time, Daryl, they're going out and starting to party.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They're making crazy decisions and putting weird things on social media that can affect their brand, and they're taking big risks.
Yep.
That's why both of those areas are in our book, because one actually affects the other.
Yeah, because that's how, for kids, they don't have a lot of avenues, especially in terms of being economically restrained. How do you go out and meet people and expand your network? It's a natural desire, natural human desires to connect with others. So how do you go out and do that if you don't have money? Well, let's go to a party. That's an easy way to meet some new people, especially if you're biologically programmed to be looking for a mate. That's an easy way to get past those inhibitions and meet new people. And so it serves a lot of purposes. But like you say, it does have the downside. Teaching kids that that's the only way to have fun. You can only have fun if there's booze involved or drugs or whatever. And then again, like you said, the types of people and situations they can be involved in. I think the same thing, honestly, to draw a correlation for our business listeners, happens in success. I've personally gone through it. Not to say that I think you have to wake up and prove yourself every day. So I want to preface anything I say with that. You have to wake up and prove yourself every day. But from my own personal experience, and even people that I know and I've seen, when they finally achieve any sort of, I'm making air quotes here, like success, at least financially and in business terms, it can be like those kids when they're first exposed to being able to go party and having no restraint and no supervision, and them just being like, wee, and going crazy. I know a lot of guys, and even myself, that have struggled with that, with almost too much freedom and too much ability. And how do you keep that in control? And it's funny because I know I've met people where I'm like, you've done so well, isn't it enough? Like, why don't you just relax and whatever? But I kind of appreciate that they're able to keep the drive, that it doesn't matter if they've got $10, $1,000, $10,000, $1 million, 10 million in the bank. That's, again, they're still waking up every day on that hustle.
There's a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk. Have you heard of him, Daryl? Yeah, and I listen to him all the time. And his ultimate goal is to buy the New York Jets. And he said, I was listening to one of his podcasts the other day, and he said, that I think will be the saddest day of my life, because once I've achieved that, he said, it's the hustle I love. It's the game. It's the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're in it for the game. It's not, if someone just ordained you with some accolades, boom, you got a Nobel Peace Prize, boom, you have a bank account full of cash. In some ways, you'd feel like an imposter. And so you might enjoy it to a certain extent, but it would really, like, if people praised you and were giving you all sorts of recognition for things, and you didn't feel that you worked for it or earned it, you wouldn't be so proud to show it off. Probably wouldn't give the money back.
Right? It's boring too. I mean, all of the people that would be listening to your podcast are business people, entrepreneurs. We love it. It's in us. We have to do this. There's no other way. We can't be a person who sits in the corner office and, nobody puts baby in the corner. You've got to get us out of there. We have to go, and we have to find and discover and fail and win and all of those things all the time. And that's what makes us excited about life.
It's a big adventure. It's a great adventure as well.
One of those things when you're talking about Gary V, we both listen to podcasts, YouTube clips. We just can't get enough of all of this stuff every day. And this is not something that we've just been doing for about a year. Like, I think I went to my first motivational presentation and I was 18. I just turned 18 years old, and I was listening to tapes of Tony Robbins and listening to all of these things. If we're not reading a book, we're watching a movie, we're listening to something, it's just constantly feeding that hunger that we've got.
Yep.
What can we get more? And there's not a day goes by that we don't love going, oh my God, I listened to this. You need to listen to that. Do you know what he said? Like this, like you should do that. And, you know, you should think, like when you were talking about Jim Rome, I love him. And I was literally just talking to Sonya about him today and said he did an interview with Gary Vee and it was great. And so we're constantly kind of feeding each other and say, you need to listen to this one. He gave a really good point about that. So even though we've been doing it for such a long time, we're always learning and thinking up new ways that you can, you know, how you can contact somebody or how you can work with someone or partner with someone and, you know, and never be scared. Never, ever be scared of that Hong Kong no, you know, never. Just to know, you know, and at the end of the day, the taxi driver said no to us and we had to walk a couple of blocks and we're still alive and we're okay.
Yep.
We're going to get more of those no's. Those no's of just flat out no's. And there's going to be times where we're heartbroken, and let's not try and sugarcoat it. There have literally been times where we are devastated by the no's, devastated. You know, like we've got some no's on things that we've wanted so badly, knock us around and one of us will say, I can't do this. I just can't, like, you know, can't cope with this. Like, why are they saying no? And, you know, we've done this too much and how can they say no? And it gets you down, but you don't live in that space. Like it might be that, you know, you get knocked down on a Friday and on a Monday, we're back with a new idea. And I might have spent 2 days on the couch wallowing away that, you know, they said no and how could they, because I'd put my whole life into that yes, but you don't live there. And it's soon forgotten, believe it or not. It's soon forgotten because you just go on that new idea.
Yeah, that's right. The trail never stops, and it's but the next thing and the next thing and the next, and it's moving forward. Alan Watts is a great philosopher. I mention him a lot just because I did a ton of studying when I was young into different philosophies and religions, and Alan's dedicated his life to it. He's passed on now. But he has this great talk called The Dream of Life, and he says, imagine if you could dream. It's just something to think about, right? Just as a thought experiment. But imagine every night when you went to sleep, you had the power to dream 75 years of life, or 100 years, or however many years of life you wanted. So every time you go to bed, you're dreaming 100 years of life. And when you first discover this power, the first thing you would do is you would dream every pleasure imaginable. You'd enjoy all the great riches, all the wonderful pleasures. You do all the things that, you know, you could do, you know, the most wonderful life ever. After a couple of months of having this most amazing and exciting life for 100 years, every night when you went to bed, you'd want something different. And so suddenly you'd want to start knowing like some uncertainty, some unpredictability. You'd want some ups and downs in your story to appear. And over time, gradually you get riskier and riskier. You'd start pushing the limits and the boundaries, right? You'd want more, like you'd want that growth, that stimulation, until eventually you decided that when I go to sleep tonight and I dream these 100 years, I don't want to know that I'm dreaming. And the reality is that in the infinite possibility of the world, it's possible that in a lifetime of dreaming 100 years every night that you could dream the life that you're living today. And it is an adventure. He's got another talk called The Chinese Story, The Chinese Farmer. And that's where one day this Chinese farmer, what is it? And his horse runs away and all the neighbors go, oh, isn't that too bad? And he goes, maybe. And the next day the horse comes back with 4 wild horses. And they're like, wow, isn't that, his neighbors go, wow, isn't that amazing? And he goes, maybe. And the day after that, his son is trying to tame one of the wild horses, gets thrown off and breaks his leg. And the neighbors going, man, isn't that a shame? And he goes, maybe. And the day after that, all the military soldiers come through their town, conscripting all the young men into the army, and they don't take his son because of the broken leg. And all the neighbors go, wow, isn't that great? And the farmer goes, maybe. So reality is you don't know if something happens, whether it's going to be good or bad. Like the nature is so intricate. It's so complex. There's no way to know for sure that this positive or negative thing, and you feel positive or negative about whether it was really good for you or bad for you in the long term. There's no way to know that. And so you just kind of got to keep living that life and moving forward and trying to do the best. And it sounds like foster a really healthy and probably not perfect, but man, very enriching and fulfilling and satisfying business partnership and relationship in your life. Like you two shared, and just have a goal that you can be passionate about. And I think if you have a goal that you can be passionate about and you've got your expenses covered and you're seeing progress and growth and you're surrounded with people that you like, love, and respect, and you're working together towards a common goal, I think that only wonderful things can happen from that.
And absolutely, like looking at the bigger picture for things all the time is so important for us because we still have small children. So we both still have 3-year-olds at home. And every now and then, you know, we'll put something in to do a big project and you get rejected. And, you know, it's interesting because Sonya and I have recently been rejected from something, and we both literally just went, maybe if we got that, it would mean that we would not be at home as much as we really really need it. So maybe the fact that we've got 3-year-olds, you know, the universe is saying you need to be at home with them way more than you need to be go out there and doing that particular thing. Give it a couple more years and then you're able to fly once they're at school and all of that stuff. And so we kind of try and get that. We're always looking at the bigger picture of things. At the time, it kills you because you get the no, but you sometimes think, well, maybe it's actually for the best thing.
Yeah.
Just like that story. I love that story.
Yeah. No, you're right. You know, you don't really know. So as long as you're okay, really, it's the big thing. And I think people build up in their head. They get really, like, the fear that your imagination is worse than the reality of it, unless it's like a bus, you know. And like, there are hard lines in life, but for the most part, we get really bent out of shape for things that, you know, aren't so big of a deal. So, but you two have been so open and honest and candid and forthcoming and given such great information in this call. I think some listeners may want to listen to this again just to pick up some of the tidbits that you two shared just through your stories. It wasn't necessarily like you should do this, but just through your example and talking about your own life experiences. I think there's a lot to be learned here. I know that I learned a lot, and I'm probably going to listen to this interview again just in helping develop and foster those good relationships. Because whether it's a business partner or a spouse or a family member or even staff, you know, we live in a world of people. And so some of the things that you two shared with us, not even just about teenagers and understanding their perspective and the struggles that they're going through, but again, like in all capacities, persisting and following up with someone, but, you know, and not being afraid of the no, but also dealing with them with empathy and understanding. There's just a lot of real great gems in this call. So I encourage anyone that's listening to it, if you found value or if you didn't find value, you may want to listen to it again because I think you missed it.
Thank you.
For those that were listening and really resonated with your message or want to get involved and help you with your mission, where should they reach out? Where can they find you? How can they get involved?
Okay, so they can get onto the website, which is sonyaandsasha.com.au. So we're in Australia, so you've got to put that A on the end. And we are Sonya and Sacha across all of the social media platforms. So if you search us up, it's SONYA and SACHA. And you can find us even on YouTube as well. There's lots of clips for parents and tips and tricks that we've come across over the years for businesses and for parents and for teenagers as well.
Perfect. And as well, there's your book. They can go get your book, The 2 Worlds of Your Teenager. And is that going to be kind of everywhere?
Everywhere.
Yeah, you'll be able to download the e-book version. Is that what they call them? E-book? Yeah. Yeah, so once it's released on the 24th of July, you will be able to buy it in bookstores in Australia, but then online internationally.
That's awesome.
If anyone's listening, it's 2017. So if somebody listens to this from a year down the track, it's available. So pretty much like, but it's out there in the world.
Yeah, the book's out there. Go check it out. And I honestly think that there'll probably be some correlations you can draw because honestly, even adults, we're all just big kids. So there's a lot of people that don't grow up. There's a lot of people that they just can't wait to get to the weekend to have that drink or go to that barbecue. So we talk about the 2 worlds of your teenager. I think that there might even be that, like, you know, some of us might know bosses or clients or employees or even parts of ourselves that haven't maybe fully grown up. And there could be benefit in understanding the inner teenager in all of us. So check out the book.
We're also available to speak, so we will absolutely travel anywhere to speak. And we do speak, obviously we speak to teenagers and to parents, but we will speak, you know, to any corporation at conferences, and we can actually talk about these topics around having successful business partnerships and understanding the grind and understanding how much you need to hustle and, you know, how much work you really need to do. And we give some really great strategies.
That's awesome.
And we'll make it fun and entertaining too.
Perfect. So get in touch with them. You can look up Sonya and Sacha, SONYA and SASHA on all social media.
SACHA.
Oh, you're right. I'm so sorry. That was SACHA. I was reading because at the beginning I was calling you Sacha, so forgive me. SACHA, Sonya and Sacha, but it's spelled SACHA. And then, of course, you find them on all social media. And then what was the web URL again?
sonyaandsasha.com.au.
Perfect. Thank you, ladies, so much. Was there anything I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
No, I think that's good. That's a good little chat.
Good. I think we covered a lot of bases, and I think there'll be a lot of value for the listeners. And I know I found it insightful for myself, for the teenagers that I live with, and I'm helping out. And as well, like I mentioned, I even just in the conversation, it made me think of some older teenagers.
And they should always stay that way. It's always good to have that,
right?
That young outlook on life.
So thank you, too, for joining us today and sharing with our listeners. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate the hustle, Sacha. Appreciate your hustle and getting this connected and helping get it set up. And I appreciate you, too, reaching out, and I appreciate you coming and help my listeners. So thank you both.
Whatever
Thank you,
we
Darryl.
can do for you, Daryl, along the way, please stay in contact with us. We would love to help you and get back on. And if there's other things that you would like to discuss, we would be more than happy to do this 1,000,000 times more with you.
You've reached the end of our interview. Now, first, let me thank you for listening. I appreciate and respect you more than you'll ever know. And now I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. First, what 3 lessons did you just learn? What 3 aha moments just jumped out at you? Second, what can you implement for yourself and your business in the next 24 hours? Third, what can you give to someone else to help you with, or give to them to just do it for you? Whatever it is, remember, taking action is the secret sauce to results. Now, if you think this interview would be helpful for a friend, please give them a link to it. It'll help them and it'll help me too. I'd also like to invite you to help me find out more about the challenges you're facing, your dreams, your goals, and how I can help you overcome what's holding you back. We both do better when we know better, and your success is my success. So please reach out and interact. You can visit our website, bestbusinesscoach.ca for Canada or California, where I'm from and where I'm living. You're welcome to also try out one of our paid programs. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and pretty much every other social media channel you can think of. You should also subscribe to the podcast, and if you're enjoying them, please leave us a nice review. It really helps. That's all for now. Once again, thank you. Take care of yourself, and remember, the world needs the best business you can build. And I believe in you.
So look, I was privileged enough to sit in the room the other day and listen to Daryl present.
I had the great fortune to spend some time with Daryl Abrinsky during this week, and we had an incredible 2.5-hour presentation from Daryl.
Daryl was amazing. I got so many little nuggets of wisdom.
I hadn't heard Daryl speak before, but what struck me from his presentation was
He's one of these hidden masters in the internet marketing world who's worked on some pretty incredible launches.
Daryl has a ridiculous amount of knowledge.
Daryl Abrinsky's presentation was absolutely great. I really loved
an incredible knowledge of numbers. He is a very articulate, very knowledgeable, very advanced marketer.
Well, he talked a lot about keyword tools and how to research your niche.
So it really created a lot of predictability around moving forwards in our business with the marketing and sales aspect, which is so important to any business to really see it grow.
Where he walks you through step by step
how to judge in detailed form how much money you could potentially make from a market based on AdWords, keyword research, and putting together quite complex Excel spreadsheets.
And what I took away from it is not only understanding your niche market, but also looking at and breaking down and going, am I working with the right niche? Is there enough demand there for me to be able to reach my goals? And doing that hard research.
There's a lot of gurus out there that present you a lot of the why and the what, but they don't necessarily give you the how. And what I really found with Daryl's presentation, there's no holding back. There was no holding back the screens or the curtains. Like, everything was given to really assist us.
His feasibility and due diligence is incredible, and he was able to show us in a really short space of time how to cut through the overwhelm.
You're giving us the exact tools that we can use to test something before we even go to start testing it by spending money on it.
One of the biggest nuggets that I got out of his presentation was that when people pay, they pay attention, and when people pay a lot, they pay a lot of attention. I just love that. I think that's a great way to look at how to price yourself.
And he was a great speaker, lots of energy, and it was really great to spend time with him.
Honestly, phenomenal presentation.
I would love to catch up with him, next time I'm in this part of the world.